Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another video in the Make It Fire Melody series. Today we're going to talk about chord voicing and what that is, why is it important, and how you use it to, well, make fire melodies. So let's hop right on into it. So in the previous video, we talked about chords, right? Chords is a grouping of notes, right? Based off of, whatever scale you're in. You can make minor chords, major seventh, minor seventh chords. You can make some pretty interesting stuff. I obviously didn't cover all the chords. There's a ton of chords out there. If you guys want me to make a super advanced chord video, let me know, and I will. But other than that, let's hop right on over into this chord voicing. I'm assuming you guys have watched the other videos, so you guys know how to make chords, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of the elements of scales and chords and put them together. You see how everything is starting to compound on top of each other? All right, so we're going to pick a random scale. Let's do G. Let's do F sharp minor. Was that minor? I don't know. It was minor. Okay, decent. Let's do F sharp minor. Let's just pick some random chords. I don't know. Let's just do that. All right, so cool. Basically what I did was I just picked some random notes within F sharp minor, and then I just made chords out of them. So I know in the other chord video, I didn't show this, but I'm going to show it now. Essentially, another way if you want to make random chords, so like let's say I pick a note right in the scales. Obviously, I'm using these highlighted grid lines, so I know what notes are in the scale of F sharp minor. A quick way that you could just build random chords, if you look at the scale, whether you use ghost notes or not, this background of highlighted grid lines is essentially the same thing. You can skip. So if I start on a note, I just pick 4 random notes, and then I look at what is the next note in the scale, then I'm gonna skip that one. So I see that's in the scale, so I'm gonna skip it and draw on the next one. All right, I go to the next one that's in the scale. I'm gonna skip that one, then draw the next one. And I'm gonna do the same thing for each note here. So I see it's in there, skip, place. I see that is in the scale, I'm gonna skip that, place. I see this is in the scale, I could skip that and place, but I'm only doing 3 note chords right now. So on, so forth. Okay, you're just being weird. But other than that, that's how you do that quickly. I just wanted to show you guys that. So, chord voicing. What is chord voicing? Chord voicing is the intervals in between the notes in the chord. What are intervals? Intervals are those numbers, right, that I referenced in the scale video. Remember when we went through the scale and assigned each note numbers? Well, those are intervals. So the first note obviously is going to be 1, right? But the second note is going to be interval number 2, third note is going to be interval number 3, fourth note is going to be interval number 4, and so on and so forth. Now with chord voicing, it's all about changing the intervals, right, of the chord to mesh with the other chords, or to create more luscious chords or more interesting chords, or whatever the case may be. We could switch up the intervals. Now, how we do that is through chord inversions. So what is a chord inversion? A chord inversion is an alternative state of a chord. So what I just did with these chords right here was I picked random notes, and then I made a chord in the root position, right? Root position, basically your home position for chords without inverting them. So I guess to better explain that, let's get into inversions. So if I was to invert this specific chord alone, right, I would take a note and I'd shift it up an octave. Remember, if you forgot or don't know how to, you can shift notes by holding control. You can drag it, or you can just hold control and you can click and select it. But you hold control and then use the up arrow and or down arrow to move an octave. If you just want to move up in one interval, you can hold shift and use up arrow or down arrow. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm gonna drop this. Actually, no. Before we do that, we're gonna make this the first inversion. So this is an inversion because now the intervals of the chord has now changed. This is still the same chord. It's still the same chord. It doesn't matter where the intervals are at, or it doesn't matter which inversion it is. It's still the same chord regardless. But what this does is allow you to go from one chord to the other, or the next chord and or previous chord, depending on what you're playing, in a more musical type of way to give it more feeling. Because if I just play this, it sounds kind of like basic and boring. But if I change up the voicing, you can get more interesting stuff. So this was one inversion, also known as first inversion. If I take this note and I do it again, that is called the second inversion, right? Now if I take this note and I do it again, it's called not the third inversion. I know what you was thinking. No, this is just back to root position. We're back at the same type of chord. So look at this: F sharp, A, C sharp, with the regular third intervals and the regular fifth intervals. So if I just do this again, see, we're back at the same type of chord we was down here. That's why there's only root position, there's first inversion, and then there's second inversion. All right, there's only 3 different ways that you can play triad chords. Triad means 3 note chords. Just to kind of throw this in here and give it some more variation right quick. Let's say we have a 7th chord, but we wanted to invert that, right? Well, we have first inversion. Okay, now we have second inversion. Okay, then we have third inversion because, right? Because there's 3, or I mean not 3, excuse me, there's 4 notes now, so there's more notes to move. But now if we move this one and we're back at root position again. So I know that's a little complex type of concept. However, you need to learn it. Long story short. All right, let's get back over to chord voicings now that we know like what voicings is and how to invert these things. Now, you could do it randomly. However, there's a couple generic guidelines that you can follow, if you will. One of them is each chord, or so if you start on this chord, then the next chord should share a note from the previous chord, and do that for every single chord. So this chord should share a note with that chord, this chord should share a note with that chord, and this chord should share a note with that chord. So obviously these two share notes. So I mean, I don't really got to do much there. Maybe I could just, invert those down. Maybe I keep that up there just to keep things interesting, and then maybe I move this up here to keep things interesting, right? I'm just moving things around. It's all about getting creative. You want to make fire melodies, then you don't need to think so technically. I'm just showing you the theory concepts behind music so you know what you're doing, of course, but like have some fun. So if I was to do this too, let's see. Let's see. Nah. All right, so none of these share, right, a note or whatever the case may be. Okay, well, if that's the case, then you want a note to remain as close as possible. So I might choose either this note and or this note because these are relatively close to this note right here. They're not that far off if you count intervals, right? So this is E. So we're going from F sharp to E. How many intervals is that in between? Well, that's 1, 2. That's just 2 intervals. If we go the opposite way, go from F sharp to here, this note, which is G sharp, it's also just 1, 2 intervals away. Now, if I invert things, right, maybe, boom. Well, I actually didn't catch that the first time, but that's a good example. I found a note that shared. Obviously, even I make those, type of quote-unquote mistakes, even though it's not a mistake. Just sometimes you just don't even see stuff like that. And you don't have to always share a note. That's just a guideline you could follow. And I might do that some there. And then now let's see what our chord progression sounds like. That's a lot more interesting than what we had the first time. So essentially, chord voicing is just changing how the chords are played, right? That's all that is. It's not hard. It's not a crazy concept or anything like that. All it is just changing how the chords are actually played. So make sure that if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you're new around here, go ahead and hit that subscription button, subscribe to the channel, and also tap that post notification bell. It's like a little bell icon. You just want to hit that, so that way you're notified anytime that I drop videos. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, then make sure that you leave a comment in the comment box below. I will answer those. I'll get to you and maybe even make a video from it. So other than that, I appreciate you for tuning in to the very end. Make sure that you go watch the next video, because I'm gonna make all these concepts. All these concepts are going to basically compile on top of each other, and then we're going to make a fire melody. So I appreciate you for tuning in. My name is Illsounz, and we up out of here.